For centuries, some of the smartest people around have wrestled with a few gigantic questions. And their answers? Well, they literally built the world we live in today. So let's dive into the great debate that designed our governments, our laws, and even our most basic rights.
It really all boils down to this one fundamental question. Are we, as humans, hardwired to be selfish and wicked, or are we naturally good and reasonable? Because you see, your answer to that question changes everything about how you think a society should be run. So before the Enlightenment really got going, this Renaissance thinker, Machiavelli, basically threw a grenade into the whole discussion. He argued that for a leader, being effective was way more important than being morally good. He was one of the first to really separate politics from old-school morality, saying, hey, to keep order, a ruler's got to be pragmatic, maybe even ruthless. I mean, think about it. His influence was so huge, his name literally became an adjective. If you call someone Machiavellian today, you're saying they believe the ends justify the means. He really set this cynical but very practical stage for all the thinkers who came after him, forcing them to deal with the cold, hard realities of power. And this brings us to the main event, the core conflict of the Enlightenment. Think of it like a heavyweight bout between two English philosophers. They had two totally opposite views of humanity, and that clash still defines our political debates today. And here's where it gets really interesting. A single difference in belief about human nature leads to two completely different conclusions. See, Hobbes lived through the chaos of the English Civil War, and he came away thinking people are just naturally wicked. But Locke, he believed we're born with reason, that we're naturally good. That one disagreement creates two wildly different blueprints for society. For Hobbes, this was it. This was human existence, a constant, non-stop scramble for more power. He argued that without an all-powerful ruler, an absolute monarch, to keep everyone in line, life would just be a state of constant war. So you had to make a trade. You give up your freedom to get security. No other way. But then you have Locke, who saw the world in a completely different light. He believed that since we're all born with the ability to reason, we are all equal and independent. We don't need a king to save us from ourselves. We have a natural law to guide us, and it all starts with respecting the rights of other people. And this brings us to a huge idea, natural rights. For Locke, these rights are not given to you by a government. You are born with them, period. And the only legitimate job of any government is to protect those rights that you already have. And if it fails to do that, well, the people have the right to get a new government. Okay, so if we've decided on the purpose of government, that brings us to the next big question. How should a government actually be built? This debate led to three very distinct models for how to structure a state, each one championed by a different philosophical giant. So, we've got three competing visions on the table. Voltaire put his faith in one wise king, Montesquieu put his faith in a balanced system, and Rousseau, he put his faith directly in the people themselves. Voltaire was a huge advocate for civil rights and freedom of speech, but, and this is a big but, he deeply distrusted democracy. He thought the masses were like rats, just prone to petty, selfish squabbles. So what was his solution? An enlightened monarch, a single, super-rational ruler, advised by smart philosophers like him, of course, who could push progress forward from the top down. Now, Montesquieu had a more mechanical solution to the problem of power. He believed that to stop tyranny, you had to split the government into different branches. Think legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch would have its own job and, critically, the power to check the others. The whole goal was to engineer a system where no single person or group could get too powerful. Then Rousseau came along with the most radical idea of them all. He said that any legitimate government has to come from a social contract where the people themselves agree on the rules. It's kind of like a deal. You give up a tiny bit of your individual freedom to the whole community, and in return, you get protection, and this is the important part, you get to rule yourselves. And this leads to maybe his most famous line ever. He believed that people are born good, but that modern society, with all its kings and its property and its inequality, corrupts us. It puts us in chains. For Rousseau, the only way to be truly free was for the people to make the laws for themselves. All right, we've designed the government. But what about you and me? What about the people actually living in it? Another group of thinkers started focusing less on the rulers and more on creating a kind of toolkit of rights for the average citizen. This Italian philosopher, Cesare Beccaria, he basically argued for a complete teardown of the old, cruel criminal justice system. He said it should be based on reason, not revenge, and he pushed for ideas that sound incredibly familiar to us now, right? Public trials, juries of your peers, no cruel or unusual punishments, and absolutely no torture to get a confession. Justice for him had to be rational and humane. Meanwhile, over in England, William Blackstone was busy writing down all the fundamental rights of English citizens. He boiled them down to three main things: personal security, the right to be safe in your own body; personal liberty, the freedom to go where you want; and the right to private property. His work became the legal Bible for Britain, and, as we'll see, for America too. But there's a catch, right? Almost all of these guys were talking about the rights of man, and that's where Mary Wollstonecraft steps in and just smashes the whole conversation open. She powerfully argued that the idea that women were inferior wasn't natural at all. It was caused by a simple lack of education and, in her words, the tyranny of men. And here's the crucial part of her argument. This wasn't just about justice for women. She claimed that freeing women from this tyranny would make everyone's life better. Her point was that oppression corrupts the whole system, and that true progress for society was impossible without equality for all. So you might be thinking these are all cool ideas from a bunch of philosophers in Europe, but did they actually matter? Did they leave the page? Oh yeah, they absolutely did. Let's trace how this great debate became the direct blueprint for a brand new nation. The line of influence here is crystal clear. You can literally draw a straight line from these ideas to the founding documents of the United States. Thomas Jefferson practically channeled John Locke when he wrote about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The framers of the Constitution, they used Montesquieu's model of balanced powers to design the three branches of government. And the Bill of Rights is just packed with protections that come straight out of the work of Beccaria and Blackstone. And that brings us right back here to today. These ideas aren't just dusty old history. They are alive and kicking right now. That fundamental tension between security and freedom, between the power of the government and the rights of the individual, that debate never ended. So the question for you is, as you look around, where do you see these centuries-old arguments shaping our world at this very moment?